Welcome everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Peter Meredith. I am the Business Development Officer here at Tech Eagles. We are so glad you're joining us this afternoon for our discussion on how the actual people play a role in your cybersecurity. Last month, we talked about the financial risk of a cyber attack that you have as a small business. And we're continuing with that general theme of cyber risk. But today we'll be sharing some tips to hopefully help you lower the risk by turning your employees from your biggest cyber risk into your biggest cyber asset. As we go through today's webinar, you can post your questions into the chat and I will circle back around at the end to answer those questions. We'll go ahead and get started. I think it's helpful to begin our discussion by reviewing a few sobering statistics that are related to people and cybersecurity. Approximately 80 to 95% of all cyber breaches are caused or result from a human error. So this comes from a few different studies that were done by Stanford, IBM, and a few other places. And it does include just about every kind of human error. Sometimes these errors are little things like forgetting to change a password or not properly following a policy or procedure. And I'm sure we are all aware of the most famous error we make, and that is clicking on or downloading something we should not have. I hope this, helps to let it sink in how important our employees are. If we were perfect human beings, uh, we would have almost no computer issues. One of the most shocking statistics is that 30% of cyber breaches were caused by a malicious insider. In this definition, a malicious insider is defined as someone who has access to an internal system and intentionally causes harm. This is a wild statistic, and it's most commonly happens when a disgruntled employee who was fired seeks revenge on their company. Unfortunately, many businesses don't properly and promptly terminate access to an employee when they leave their company. And you can kind of see how these two statistics overlap. On the one hand, you have an IT person who fails to properly revoke access, which allows for a disgruntled former employee to use their insider information to cause damage. Another crazy number is 3.4 billion phishing emails are sent every day. This is about equal to the total number of people who have a computer. In the IT world, we kind of refer to two different categories for phishing attacks. There are general phishing attacks and spear phishing attacks. So a normal general phishing attack is kind of like a huge net. The hackers will send out a mass email to everybody and hopefully they'll make a few catches. Spear phishing, on the other hand, is a unique email that's targeting a specific person. What we're seeing now is hackers are starting to use AI to send a massive number of personalized emails. And this has just gotten crazy. Our final statistic we'll look at today is that 70% of businesses were denied coverage of a cyber incident by their insurance provider. It is my hope that your business has cyber insurance in addition to implementing good security practices. But the sad reality is that most cyber insurance policies have conditions that you must fulfill or meet in order for an incident to be covered. Sometimes these are confusing to understand and you may often be misled into believing that you have implemented them properly. So this leads us to our big question of today. How do I turn my employees into a security asset? Well, first let's talk about insurance requirements. I'm going to go over some of the common requirements that we see in insurance policies and hopefully be able to provide some insight to help you ensure that they are implemented properly. The first requirement we often see is that you must implement some form of multi-factor authentication. Sometimes this is not, sometimes it's just a condition by the insurance provider to get you a lower premium, but sometimes this is conditional in order for an incident to be covered. With this and most of the other policies, insurance companies don't always require you to have this in order to purchase the policy, but often they will require you to have these procedures implemented in order for a policy to be, an incident to be covered. The second thing we sometimes see is, uh, do you have to follow an approved training program? One of the whole reasons why we get insurance is to help cover for our human errors. So let's say, imagine a scenario where you or an employee accidentally falls for a phishing email and sends $10,000 to a hacker instead of your vendor. You may think to yourself, oh, this is exactly why I have insurance. But then when you go to your insurance, they say, we're so sorry to hear this happen to you. Before we cover this incident for you, have you taken your cybersecurity training? You might panic and think, oh, cybersecurity training. And then maybe you remember, oh, yeah, last year we all sat down in the whole company and watched a video on cybersecurity training. So you tell the insurance company, and unfortunately, they respond with, fantastic. Why don't you just send us the certificate that proves you completed your cybersecurity training program, and then we'll be good. This is not exactly how it might happen, but you get the idea. Not only do you have to follow a training program, but you actually have to prove that you followed a training program. The third category for insurance requirements is incident response requirements. Insurance companies are typically very picky about how people are supposed to act after a security incident happens. For example, a lot of insurance companies require that IT companies receive authorization before they touch anything on the network after an incident. This could lead to a situation where you call an IT company because you've had a cybersecurity incident. They show up to try and fix the issue. At the same time, you call your insurance company and you discover this IT company you asked to help you did not receive prior authorization, so the insurance company will not cover your incident. The last thing I want to talk about is some sort of negligence clause. Now, it might not be specifically worded in this way, but a lot of times insurance companies will want you to prove that you are following certain practices and procedures properly. And if you don't have those in place, then oftentimes they'll kind of fight you over whether or not they'll cover your incident. So this leads to our next topic, which is security practices. So if you don't have clear outlined security practices and evidence for following them, it can be difficult to prove your case. I'm just going to cover these 4 security practices today. There are many, many more, but these are kind of the ones that we see tie in mostly to insurance and employees. So what's your business practice for communicating sensitive information? Every business has some sort of sensitive information. This is information that you don't want the public to know. It doesn't have to be information on clients. It could just be financial or employee information. If you don't have a clear practice outlined for how your employees are supposed to communicate sensitive information between you and each other, it could cause security incidents, and it could also make it difficult to have a security breach be covered by insurance. The next security practice is for your IT company or your IT department. Do they have a standard practice or procedure for updating your devices and security software? If you don't know of a standard practice or procedure, you can ask your IT company or department for their policy. One of the main reasons you have an IT company is to implement and follow these types of practices. If they don't want to provide you a copy of their procedure, that should start to raise red flags in your head, because when your business gets hacked and your money's on the line, insurance companies and investigators want to know what you have been doing to keep your devices up to date. This third one is pretty simple. Have you enabled MFA and good password policies, and then enforce those across your whole company? You can contact your IT company to help you implement this. And you should also contact your cyber insurance to see if they specifically require MFA on certain systems. Usually they just require it for email if they're requiring MFA. The last topic here is just a simple but most effective strategies. Do you have an incident response plan? So like I said before, if your employee responds inappropriately or calls the wrong person or has somebody do something after an incident, that could cause your insurance coverage to lapse. So it's very important to have a clear incident response plan for you, your employees, and your IT company to follow. So now let's talk about security practices. Or should I say your employee access policies. So employee access policies are pretty simple and straightforward. We just ask these 5 questions. What sensitive information does your business have? What access level does each employee have at your business? And what is the minimum access necessary for each employee to do their job? How do you enforce that access? And then when an employee leaves, how do you terminate their access properly? So let me give you an example of this. Suppose your business has a shared folder that has sensitive financial information. What you do in this process is you ask yourself, okay, who needs access to this folder to do their job? Then you make a list. After that, you can contact your IT company and ensure that only those people on the list can access the shared folder. Then, if any of those employees stops working for your company, you should revoke their access on the same day that they leave. This may sound super simple, but we are literally dealing with a client that years ago, under their old IT company, they set up a shared folder with sensitive financial information and gave everyone in the company access. And when an former employee was let go, her access was not removed. Their discovery of the former employee stealing money from them for years is what led them to switch to Tech Eagles. Another quick thing you can do to increase your security in terms of employee access is to contact your IT company and make sure that none of your employees, their computer accounts or their email accounts, are administrators. If an employee's password or email is compromised and they are an administrator, the hackers will immediately jump in and compromise the rest of your system and the rest of your email. This can be avoided by removing the unneeded administrator privileges from employees. With that, we're going to move on to our final and most important topic, which is training. So here's what you need to have a good training program. The first category is that every employee has to be required to take the training. Your training has to be done every year. It must be a modern, up-to-date training program. It should also cover training for your business's specific policies and procedures. If you remember, I mentioned having an incident response plan. When your company creates that, that should be included in the training because it'll be unique for your business. And the best training also includes phishing simulations. You can't expect your employees to be able to recognize cyber attacks without training. And also, your team needs to be aware of the new types of attacks that are coming out each and every day. For example, we've seen a new attack recently where they have created a Microsoft email login where you can put in your username and password, and secretly they take that information and copy it into a real Microsoft portal on the hacker's device. And they even pop up with the, implement your MFA code, and they steal that and put it in. And seconds after they get into your system, they add their phone as a secondary MFA device. Meanwhile, you are getting redirected straight to your email or Microsoft 365 as if nothing had happened at all. Without good training and regular training, you can't expect your employees to be your first line of defense. 6.3% of people who get a phishing email open the email and click on the link. Statistically, if someone got one phishing email every single day, there's with a 3.6% chance of clicking on the link, the probability that that person will click on at least one link over a year's time is 99.9998%. It is absolutely critical that your team has a good training program in place and takes the training on an annual basis. Ultimately, the best way to turn your employees into a security asset is through a multi-directional approach. It is this combination of regular training, good security practices that everyone knows and follows, and then technical safeguards like decreasing authorization to systems that employees don't need access to. Attacking these three vectors will change your employees into the first line of defense for your business. Thank you everyone for being here. If you have any questions and you have not already put them in the chat, you can go ahead and put those in now, and I will see if I can answer those. We did have one here. Is there anything I can do in addition to training to help my employees avoid phishing emails? Yes, there are additional security safeguards that you can implement for your email that will, first of all, spam filters help block and reduce the number of phishing emails that somebody gets, but there are also different security systems that will add like a banner on top of an email that will say, for example, this is the first time you're getting an email from this person. This is something we have implemented here at Tech Eagles and for many of our clients. And it really does help, especially if a hacker is trying to impersonate somebody who your business has frequent communications with. Once you see that banner, you think, oh, wait a second, I should have communicated with this person before. And so that's another layer in addition to training. But yes, good question. We did have another question here. How do I know if my insurance will cover an incident? Well, really the best way is to work with your insurance provider to try and understand your policy and then work with your IT company to help make sure that you are following the insurance policy properly. Make sure your IT company is authorized to respond to an incident. Make sure that if there's any um, controls or practices or things that they want implemented, that you have it implemented um, as per your insurance provider's request. Awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions. Thank you all for being here. We'll do another one of these webinars next month, and we will be sending out a recording of this for anyone who didn't get to see the full thing or wants to watch it again. So thank you all.